but EQing into a saturator is different than just EQing. So it's something I'm going to be thinking about next time I do that.
Yeah, just I don't know, just grab whatever. I mean, for example, the black box. Just put it after the EQ and then just crank something into it. The thing with the black box is that it tends to get like it distorts a lot, so it tends to get harsh in some points. But just try it out, and you'll see it's kind of EQing like EQing into compression, but it feels different, and it kind of limits the EQ move to a certain point where it gets just. If you keep pushing, it just gets denser. It doesn't get louder.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because I think that's like, like you have a guitar, right? And you have a Marshall amp, right? And then you have a tube screamer that goes into the Marshall. So you're grabbing the guitar into an overdrive pedal, and then you're saturating the input of the Marshall that it's already saturated.
Right.
And you can only go so far before it breaks, in the sense of like before it sounds bad. But it's
right. You're doing serial saturation. Yeah. Right.
So it's basically that, just taken to a console. Again, I didn't invent this. This is something that has been done for decades. Since day one from recording,
Right. Even though probably at the time people didn't know that was what was good about it, right? Yeah. They were just trying to get as little distortion as possible back then. And now we're
just trying to go back, right?
We're taking advantage of it.
So I mean, but you just have to play with it and figure it out, and like actually try to see what works better for you,
and then be intentional about it.
Yeah, because everybody has different tastes. So like you're going to look for something, I'm going to look for something different. Sam is going to look for something completely different. I mean, for example, Sam's mixes, like, my God,
Yeah, so good.
Jesus. Like, I always feel like, dude, how do you get that high end? Like, his high end, I just love it. It's like clean, open, clear, smooth. And I'm like, how do you get there? And when he answers, it's like he's like, I usually don't add on the top. That's his answer to it, That's his way of getting that really nice high end. He takes out from the bottom of the signal, so he shifts the tonal characteristic or the timbre of the element. It makes it sound bright but smooth. Right? And that's basically what he's told me how he does it. But since I don't have that same picture that he has in my head, it's very difficult for me to get there.
Right. You can't imitate other mixers, right? You got to do it your way because that's
the only way it goes.
Right.
That's the only way it goes. You can I mean, you can like Manny Marroquin, you can like Jason, Joshua, you can like CLA, you can like Brower, you can like everybody, but they're them,
right?
You'll never.
All you have is your own ears, your own taste, your own perspective.
You'll never sound like them. It doesn't mean you'll never sound as good as them, but you'll never be them. They are they. They are their own person.
Right.
Yeah.
Give up on copying and being a cheap imitation of somebody else and try to be the best version of yourself.
Exactly. You know how many people I've heard trying to imitate CLA? And I get it. His sound is very energetic. And I love it. Like the Green Day record where American Idiot is.
Oh, yeah.
And Muse, The Second Law, that album is crazy. Like the sound of it is crazy great. But that's him. And you can learn stuff from him and you can learn stuff from whoever, but you got to do your stuff.
Yeah, Nacho, totally. I'm with you 100%. And man, this has been such an inspirational chat. Just getting it now that it's getting long, I'm going to try to like come to a close, but that's such an important lesson that I feel like it just keeps coming up over and over again on this podcast of just like leaning into what you do as opposed to trying to do what other people do.
Yeah.
And just
if
you got to have that. It's so important.
If you're the copycat, you're never going to be first on the race. You're always going to be second or later.
Yeah. and you're not going to have as much fun, right?
Yeah.
If you're beating someone else's drum, it's never going to be as good as just doing your own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, now that we've kind of talked about all these things, the whole like full picture of your approach to mixing and everything, I'd love to jump over to the sauce segment so we can kind of hear what you're doing. So you sent me a track called Bambaram by Flamba 507, Kafu Banton, and Dynasty the King. I hope I pronounced everything right. You can correct me if I didn't. But so let's have a listen to that for about 90 seconds, and we can chat a little bit about what went into that mix. Sound cool?
Okay.
Check out.
Well, it's the King Dynasty representing New York City.
Why you bang?
Big up my brethren, Flama.
Flam up. DJ Chris. This is the remix.
Girl, your body good, your body sit, your body sexy. Turn up, make me wanna spend plenty. Back it up, girl, wind up your body, make the people them know say you're hot and ready.
Bam, badam, boom, bam, bam. Bam, badam, boom, bam, bam, bam. Bam, badam, boom, bam, bam. Bam, badam, boom, bam, bam, bam. Bam, badam, boom, bam, bam. Bam, badam, boom, bam, bam. Me gusta como tú mueves ese bang bang. Tú haces que fluya natural sin plan. Tú lo tienes duro y no suave como flan. Bien redondito y molleadito como pan. Como mueve ese can can. Pórtate mal pa' darte pan pan. Muévete así como te mueves tan tan. Yo creo que me convertiste en tu fan. Remix, yeah.
Tiene la pompa como bóveda de banco. Si ella se descuida de una vez yo la salto. Si fuera maestra de su clase nunca falto. Y si bailamos no me salgo del mosaico. A mí me gusta como ella lo menea. Muchas te envidian pero mami tú no creas. Guaynango don y me deja sin idea. Yo estoy pa' secuestrarte y hacer que más nadie te vea. Ella siempre se activa cuando le ponen su tanda. Está segura de sí misma y se alborota cuando baila. A cualquiera cautiva. Tiene un movimiento que encanta. Está llena de adrenalina. Está bien dura y no se cansa.
Nacho, this is like you can't stop dancing, man. it's the groove is so good. Yeah, I love how it sounds. I mean, it's just so. It's got so much energy and like massive like low end. I'm just thoroughly enjoying it. Just so yeah, tell me a little bit about what went into that mix.
Well, first of all, I mean, a lot of what has to do with the mix being like that is that the guy who made the beat, his name is DJ Chris. He did a fantastic job. Like every single sound that he shows and everything that's in there has a purpose, and every singer has their own part in the instrumental. So it's very dynamic and it's changing all the time, right? Which makes it, very interesting and very appealing to the listener, right?
Yeah.
So that's part number one that people never take in account, like what was done before you got the track, right?
Right.
And then you just try to make everything, exaggerate everything, basically. Also, another thing that people never mention is the mastering engineer. This track was mastered by Alex Saroudakis. He was the one that I was sharing the place in Brooklyn with. That he was a mastering engineer that I would sit on the couch whenever I didn't have much to do and just learn, right?
Yeah.
And mastering also has a great impact on the songs. Obviously, if it's a good mastering engineer, it will be a good something, right? So
yeah,
I just want to give those two people the right importance.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Because people always say, like, yeah, I did this and I did that and blah, 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 but they never mention that there's a whole lot of work that was done previous and the mastering that was done after, right?
Right.
Also
got to credit the team.
And it also takes part of the song, because I mean the song has a lot of groove, but I don't know how Alex did it, but he emphasized that groove that already had. How did he make it more groovy? I have no idea, right? But he made it more groovy than it already was. So there are some things that I feel like I shouldn't take as mine because they're not, right? So I should give credit to who deserves the credit, right? So
Sure.
one of the biggest challenges in this song was that I got for the vocals of Dynasty, I got a stereo stem of all his vocals, which were already mixed, compressed with reverb and everything. So, in order for me to make the whole song work, I had to get Cafu's and Flama's vocals to sound basically the same as Dynasty's. Which
Wow.
was
That's a crazy challenge.
It's crazy because you got to figure out like, okay, well, like what reverb did they use? You know, not what plugin, but what kind of reverb and delay and whatever, and which combination and whatever, and how you make it feel familiar to that other one that you cannot unprocess.
Right.
You know, so that was the craziest, hardest part of the song. Just matching those three vocals to sound like they were, you know, in the same song recorded by the same person, even though they were probably recorded by three different people.
Having three lead vocalists is already hard, you know?
So also, the one thing is, you know, like the song being the kind of song that it is, it's very punchy. So how do you like keeping that punch and keeping those huge blows open, right?
Right.
So in order to keep blows open, you just do not compress them. You just keep them open, right? I mean, a lot of things in the instrumental have EQ and a little bit of reverb or something just to accentuate the reverb that the sound already had, just to make it more like deeper or more spacier, just to exaggerate what the producer wanted. So
more depth.
Yeah. So the instrumental is, I wouldn't say like very much like he sent it, but it's what he sent, but in an exaggerated version. Because if something had reverb, I put more reverb. Not to make it muddy, but to make it bigger or to make it more spacier, right? If something...
Right. If it had low end, you gave it more low end.
Not necessarily. I basically did what Sam would have done, which would be treating the highs so that it, you know, that same thing. Because Sam
getting rid of the lows to keep the highs.
So that's basically what Sam does. So that's what he says.
Shout out to Sam.
Yeah, man, he's such a great mixer and such a great guy.
Yes, totally.
Like
awesome guy.
Great guy. I cannot say any, like I can't, words are not enough. So the thing is, I on the lows you work on the highs, because these are virtual instruments. They usually don't have dynamics. So why would you compress them more? If you want to keep them big, if you compress them, then you'll make them smaller, which is fine if it's what you want. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was trying to make these three singers sound like they were in the same place, recorded by the same guy, and then make the whole thing work together, which meant a ton of automation and trying to make all the transitions be as powerful as they could without just blowing the speakers up. Also having the kick as present as possible without being too loud, which was, I remember that was very difficult because I was sending the song to DJ Chris because he was the one who made the beat, right? So I also wanted his input about it, and he was like, "Dude, turn the kick up," and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is so loud already," you know? I'm just trying to figure out a way of making it feel louder without being louder, and in terms of EQ or whatever, you know. That was another challenge in that one.
What'd you end up doing there?
I honestly,
If you
I
remember.
honestly just